to a liquefaction facility on the Gulf Coast with an exact methane intensity and an exact carbon intensity.
Are we looking toward a day when the price of methane may be affected by whether you can certify that or not? That is to say, you'll have more of a market, more buyers for some natural gas than for others.
Certainly, being able to demonstrate that you can meet or exceed a standard that a customer sets, I think is very important for not just Jonah, but for our industry.
Monitoring methane leaks is critical for current producers, but what about orphaned or abandoned wells? Many still emit methane, yet no one knows exactly how many there are. Talal Debs spent 15 years at JP Morgan, where he helped finance oil companies and also set up the first carbon credit trading desk. Now he runs Methane, a company that cleans up these wells and finds new ways to pay for it. So what's involved in cleaning up an oil field or a gas field?
It really is a crew of 3 to 5 people uh, with a workover rig installed, sort of a basic repair rig. You have to get over the well. And then what we do is we go downhole, we do a number of tests, and then we establish 2 different impermeable fields. One that's sort of very deep near the producing zone where the oil and gas was coming from. The other one closer to the surface. If that isn't in place, you're going to get methane leaks, and sometimes very often you would get leaks of liquid hydrocarbon into the water table as well.
Debs describes a systemic problem. For decades, oil and gas companies unloaded aging wells to smaller, underfunded operators who extracted what they could, but then went bankrupt, often because of a drop in energy prices, leaving wells unplugged and leaking methane.
They can't find anyone who's financially responsible to clean them up.
No one owns a lot of these wells.
The reason they're called orphan wells is that no one owns them. Literally not owned by any solvent person, natural person or corporate person.
Estimates of orphan wells with no responsible operator range from 310,000 to 740,000. EPA estimates 3.5 million unplugged wells are abandoned or no longer in use. At $100,000 each to fix them, who is going to pay?
The federal government, through its bipartisan infrastructure bill, had set aside $4.7 billion to the states for this problem, and those monies represent somewhere between sort of 1% and 3% of the overall need. We only plug several hundred wells a year now, which makes us the largest single plugger in North America, which is frightening to think. But we want to be doing several thousand a year in a short period of time.
Given the size of the problem and the expense in really addressing the problem, this sounds like it's really only the government, whether it's state or federal, they're going to be in a position to come in and actually make a difference.
A far better solution would be a market solution. And the reason I say that is, look, let's face it, there's no one to pay for it now. We can bring to bear technology to get the least cost execution, and we're building a business to attack the problem.
You mentioned a market solution. You know markets. You were
Yes.
at JP Morgan. They had something to do with markets. Explain to me the market solution. I think I understand the cost side. Where does the revenue or the investment come from?
Sure. This is a little bit of, build it and they will come, right? But yet we're on track. We're sort of between $40 and $50 million revenue business today. And so, there's definitely some revenue. But when we clean up a well, what we're doing is we're delivering actually something of economic good. It's not just a service. We're taking a contaminated site that couldn't be used for anything else and was causing problems for nearby communities, and we've turned it into a valuable piece of property again. And so who pays for it now? Oil companies will pay for it. We often are the service provider of choice. In addition to corporate clients who pay for our services, the carbon markets pay for our services. There's numerous companies out there that, for one reason or another, their stakeholders want them to be investing in environmental cleanup, especially emissions reduction. And that is intermediated largely by what are called environmental markets or carbon credit markets. We're actually engaging with landowners right now who have some of these wells on their property. They just inherited this liability, and there's no way to really pay for it. And the basis of our proposal is, look, we will clean up the oil wells on your property, and we will be responsible for monetizing that. We'll pay for it ourselves because we think we can get enough carbon credits on the back end to more than pay for it.
A lot of people have had net zero commitments. Are they gonna back away from them?
Well, some of them are already, but I think what the markets are also telling us is certain investor bases, especially in the world of tech and data, simply do require that there is a serious focus on the environmental impact of the energy that's consumed by these data centers for AI, for instance. When our energy companies and our large tech companies that are big power consumers now, energy consumers now, really start to see the industrial logic that we should be funding this ourselves for the markets, I wouldn't be surprised if what is now probably a 100-year backlog of wells that need to be cleaned up gets cleaned up in our lifetime.
Have the markets discovered, or are they in the process of discovering that contingent liability that's sitting out there?
I don't think they have fully discovered it in oil and gas, but I'll tell you, there's a really important evolution that's happened. Those companies have gone from being mostly interested in showing their investors the new oil and gas discoveries that they've had to living responsibly within their cash flow. And that mantra, which has been the dominating mantra, eventually will beg the question of the cash flows associated with this cleanup.
When you go in to meet with the CEO of a big energy company, what's the response?
The response has really intrigued me. When I meet with the CEO, I explain to them, hey, look, if we did this differently and you accelerated rather than delaying your backlog of retirement obligations, we could do it in such a way that you would be able to borrow more money more cheaply for new drilling, which gives you a return, and your investors, your equity investors, would love the fact that you were, as they say, as they were kitchen sinking all these liabilities, just getting right in front of it. And one of my favorite responses was, he said, look, I get it, you're 100% right, but don't forget, I can keep dancing for a very long time. I think it will be potentially a while before the rank and file of investors can understand this as good. But I would encourage that the CEOs, they do get it. And we're going to find someone soon, I hope, who's old enough to be the first one to take the plunge.
That does it for us here at Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston. This is Bloomberg. See you next week for more stories of capitalism.
Bloomberg Invest is back. Join me, Sonali Basak, and the industry's most influential people for a comprehensive view across financial markets. Hear what a second Donald Trump presidency means for the economy, how AI is being monetized by investors, and the next big risks facing the private credit industry. Bloomberg Invest, March 4th and 5th in New York City. Register your interest to attend at bloomberglive.com/invest.
Case you missed it, from Bloomberg's coverage at Davos.
The issue of ending the war in Ukraine must be, I believe, the victory for Trump and not for Putin. Putin is nobody for him. America is way stronger and Europe is way stronger. China is way stronger than Russia. They are all players.
We are exploring ways for Argentina to be able to open up to international trade. And why? Because the division of labor brings prosperity. Adam Smith said so. And 250 years later, Dan holds true. Adam Smith is still right.
I would like taxes to be lower on people and on businesses, but I'm not going to play fast and loose with the public finances, because in the end you actually don't result in anyone being better off, because it sends interest rates soaring.
I think everybody has welcomed the ceasefire in Gaza, but it's only first step. We hope that it will be solving genuinely the Palestinian problem.
Nobody covers Davos like Bloomberg.
Morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
This is Bloomberg Technology.
This is the Asia trade.
This is Wall Street Week.
Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg Television. Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. I'm Sarah Ryan in Tokyo.
And I'm Heidi Straggle here in Sydney where the trading day begins. We're here in the center of all the action to get you set up with the numbers, news and knowledge you need for the day ahead.
The demand is indeed recovery. We've been waiting for this moment.
The opportunity of a century.
Join us on Bloomberg Asia Trading. Weekdays only on Bloomberg TV. Context changes everything.
There's no shortage of drama when it comes to chip making. Even when you're winning, the game changes. Do you ever feel like you're running a race that just never stops?
Oh, of course, absolutely. That's exactly what we're doing. I'm running like a different company every few years. Like the industry is changing that fast. The technology that we're building is changing that fast. It's a fantastic race though, because each race is different. It's like a different movie, but it's a more exciting movie each time.
Lisa Su, the CEO of Advanced Micro Devices, likes to be in the driver's seat. Born in Taiwan and raised in New York with a passion for electrical engineering and 3 degrees from MIT, Su worked at a couple of big-name chip makers before clinching a big victory, transforming AMD from a failing chip company into a formidable force in gaming, PCs, and the cloud. She's quick to remind us that her secret weapon is an obsession with the tech itself. Her no-nonsense approach probably helps too.
I've heard you don't take from anyone.
Who's told you that?
Seriously, I've heard you're tough as nails, and I'm sure you have to be.
Well, I like to win, if that's okay. I would tell people I was doing semiconductors, and they would say, what? Like, what's that? Like, you build chips? Like, what does that mean? People didn't even understand, like, where technology really fit in the grand scheme of things. Like, now, everybody knows. Like, everybody talks about chips.
Chips rule just about everything around us. It's one of the most ubiquitous and consequential technologies in the world. They power your smartphones, cars, planes, power grids, the internet, the global economy, and even Formula One races, where AMD sponsors the Mercedes-AMG Petronas team.
I think the adaptability that you need to have in this sport is similar to a high-performance real-world company. The technology develops, and that's why it's so much fun. And what I love is the stopwatch never lies.
Chips are at the heart of a global technology race and a battle for supremacy between China and the United States. So for the AMD CEO, the heat is on. She's in the middle of a race of her own, pulling off the impossible by surpassing arch rival Intel, only to find that AI has completely changed the game, and now NVIDIA is in the lead. I'm in Austin to see how Sue competes on and off the track, and if she can pull off the unthinkable once again.
Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming.
So the first thing we did when we got here is we went to your lab and your engineers made us this chip. Wow. It's our own chip. A circuit on a circuit.
This is our epic with the circuit with Emily Chang.
You've been CEO of AMD for 10 years. You've been working in the chip industry for decades. But I want to go back to a moment. When did you first hear that you were going to be CEO of AMD?
It's a phone call you get from your chairman of the board, and he said, Lisa, can you talk? I'm like, sure. And he goes, it's time. And I'm like, time for what? He said, the board has made a decision, and they would like you to be the next CEO. I said, okay.
Well, how did that feel? Because it was a tough time. AMD was trading at $2 a share. One guy said it was deader than dead. What made you think you could prove them wrong?
The opportunity to be CEO of AMD was truly like a dream come true. It's like, wow, okay. Like you think that maybe you can do this? And you're going to have the opportunity to lead a major semiconductor company on, yes, you're right, it wasn't the best time. But I was pretty confident that we had the right pieces. They just needed to be put together in the right way.
AMD was founded in 1969 by executives from Fairchild Semiconductor, the famed company that pioneered integrated circuits. Founder Jerry Sanders was famous for saying, "Real men have fabs." Those are the plants that manufacture chips. AMD started off as a memory chip maker like Intel and followed its larger rival into new markets, but always struggled to achieve the scale and performance Intel enjoyed. With a cash crisis on its hands, AMD had to spin off those fabs and outsource its manufacturing. A sign of the uphill battle Sue was facing, few believed AMD would make it until she started making her moves.
Now AMD stock is trading in a totally different stratosphere. Was there a moment along the way where you really saw AMD turn a corner?
Probably the most important moment for us was the launch of our new architecture. The launch of Zen. You'll hear us talk about Zen a lot. Zen was our clean sheet design to really design the next generation architecture in CPUs for the next decade.
AMD's main competition in designing the best chips comes from two players, NVIDIA in graphics processing units, or GPUs, and Intel in central processing units, or CPUs. A CPU is the Swiss Army knife of semiconductors. They run operating systems and programs, retrieve files, and are generally the heart of a computer. A GPU, or graphics chip, is much more specialized. They were designed to do multiple small calculations simultaneously. That parallel processing makes them ideal for AI. The new Zen architecture put AMD back on top and gave it a range of chips capable of taking market share from Intel.
You proved the naysayers wrong. That has to feel like vindication. Like, do you ever just shut the door and go, yes, all by yourself?
I don't know that I do that, Emily. Those first few years were more about just stabilizing the company and getting ourselves on a good roadmap. And then we went through a period of just tremendous growth around the portfolio. And now we're in the AI world.
This current AI wave is moving so fast. How would you describe the pace right now?
I truly believe AI is the most transformational technology that I've seen in my career. And we've seen all kinds of technology transitions. We've seen the rise of the internet. We've seen the rise of the PCs, mobile phones, cloud. All of these things were all really mega trends. I think AI actually surpasses all of that. The rate and pace of change in the industry, it's faster than anything we've ever seen. It's we've made more progress in the last 18 months than certainly the last 10 plus years.
Now, to win and keep winning, you have to keep up the pace and keep bringing the heat over decades. How do you keep up your own pace, personally?
I really enjoy just the learning part of technology and the learning part of being in our industry. I spend a lot of time with our engineers as they're developing products, and in every one of those conversations, I learn something. And I learn something that I can then say, hey, maybe we should do this just a little bit differently.
Morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia. We'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart the European trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at the Forbidden City in Beijing, and this is Bloomberg.
I come here for 2 reasons. I come when there are good things, because I want to be able to see some of the new technology myself, and then I come when there's a problem. when there's a problem, I'm here to cheer them up.
To cheer them up,
Oh,
not to
yes.
crack the whip.
No, because at the end of the day, like, these guys love what they do.
I've heard you make some late night trips in the lab.
I've done late nights, I've done weekends. I don't want to surprise them. It'd be too much for a surprise. I can't just pop in.
Might have a heart attack.
That's right. I'm going to show you some of our latest tech. This is a gaming chip. We're pretty sure when it launches, it will be the fastest gaming chip in the world.
What makes you think this is the fastest gaming chip in the world?
It has a special technology which we call X3B, which puts memory really stacked on top of the processor. So it's phenomenal for gaming.
The fastest gaming chip in the world. Does it look like it? Who would know? She would.
We talked a lot about AI.
Yeah.
You need to at least see the technology.
I want to see it.
So let's take a look here.
Bring it on.
Yeah. So what we have here is these are our AI chips. This is MI300. Engineering sample, it says, and this is how it looks actually on the board.
And the weight of AI.
So this is currently in production. One of the things that we run is sort of a lot of the AI workloads, the stuff that's running on Microsoft Azure, GPT-4o, those things they're running on MI300 Metas, Llama.
Did I hear that you refer to these machines as your children?
They're all my kids. Yes. So if you were to actually step into my library at home, you would see chips galore. Because every time I launch a chip, like I save that as a souvenir. And there's no favorite. Although I have to say, this one has gone a long way. So
don't say it too loudly.
In this new race to deliver the best chips for AI, Sue is focused on catching up to NVIDIA. A niche player that got its start in the 90s making chips for computer graphics and video games, NVIDIA realized early on that its GPUs could be pivotal for AI, and suddenly blew past its competitors when ChatGPT came on the scene. NVIDIA's chips are the hot commodity for Meta, Google, and Amazon, sending its stock through the roof and besting Apple as the most valuable company in the world.
NVIDIA is seen as the dominant force in AI right now, and AMD is widely considered the next best option. Is that good enough for you? Do you like being seen as the underdog?
I wouldn't call it a like or dislike. What I would say is, AMD has had a history of doing amazing things. And from that standpoint, we've always been in this place where we haven't necessarily had the same amount of people that other larger companies have, but we've certainly punched well above our weight in terms of technology capability, in terms of impact on the industry.
This is the most complex, highest performance.
People are kind of obsessed with the fact that you and Jensen are distant cousins. I know that you are competitors, but do you ever trade notes?
Well, first of all, Jensen is brilliant, so I fully admire him for that. We were really distant, so we didn't grow up together. We actually met at an industry event, so it wasn't until we were well into our careers.
So no family dinners. Just to put the rumor to rest.
No family dinners, and it's an interesting coincidence.
So many of your customers are building their own chips. Hyperscalers like Apple and Meta and Google and Microsoft and Amazon. Is that a threat?
This is a huge market, Emily. There's like more than enough chips for everybody to build. And the beauty of this is everyone's recognized that chips are so important. Yes, so it's natural that they're going to have their own capability.
Has the shakeup of a very established industry surprised even you?
It has a little bit, I have to say. When you think about this conversation about the resiliency of the world depending on semiconductor diversification, like those kinds of things, those are big things. They're beyond an industry. They're really sort of underpinning sort of the global economy, underpinning national security. It is something that, for someone who's been in semiconductors for a long time, it's different.
This is a very complex business with trillions of moving parts. One wrong bet or manufacturing delay can cost billions and give competitors the chance to jump ahead. Just ask Intel.
It's just been a stunning fall from grace.
This company used to be the world's dominant chip maker.
Over the years, they have fallen away from being the leader. Their technology is not advanced.
We saw the worst share decline in about 40 years for the company. They gave a very grim growth forecast.
jobs.
They've always been on the brink, and they always seem to find a way, but we've never seen anything like this.
Back in San Francisco, I wanted to get perspective on the changing dynamics of the chip industry from Bloomberg reporter Ian King, who knows the stakes better than anyone else.
Explain the pace of the chip industry. Does it feel like a race to you?
It's absolutely a race. It's a murderous race. You fall behind, you are in big trouble. For decades, Intel had more resources than anybody else, more revenue, and was way ahead. It set the agenda. Takes 5 years off, basically made some bad decisions that it shouldn't have made, and now we're in a position where they might never catch up again. Right? The train does not wait for anybody.
What do you think Lisa's legacy will be?
It's already cast in stone, right? They're going to build a statue of her because she took a company that was an also-ran that used to get laughed at, almost made a difference, right, AMD, and made it a significant provider of cutting-edge technology, a serious company, one that people believe in and trust, and she did that.
Are we trading the dominance of one company for another?
The direction for the industry was set by Intel for decades. Right now, the whole AI thing is built on NVIDIA. NVIDIA is coming out with software, new chips, new services faster than anybody else is, and everybody's just following them because that's the easy thing to do. At a certain point, they become utterly pervasive, and then the cost of replacing them becomes difficult.
So what does AMD have to do to catch up?
Depends what you mean by catch up. Right? This industry tends to have a very strong player, number one, in each market, good number two, and then a number three where you're like, why are you bothering? At the moment, AMD is a solid number two, doing well. They have billions of dollars of revenue from this AI accelerator that they didn't have last year, so they're doing way better, but compared to the tens of billions of dollars that Jensen's bringing in at NVIDIA, they're a long way behind.
Let's talk a little bit about the geography. How did the chip industry become so concentrated in Taiwan?
The industry is concentrated in South Korea, in memory, in Taiwan with logic manufacturing. Intel used to sneer at them and say, outsourced manufacturing in semiconductors doesn't make sense. It's not practical. It'll never be as good as we are. Guess what? It's way better than they are right now. It's enabled NVIDIA, it's enabled AMD, and a host of other companies that could never compete with Intel to do more than compete to win, because it's providing the best manufacturing in the world.
However, this has created a very geopolitically difficult situation.
Taiwan is at its closest point about 100 miles away from the coast of mainland China, as you know. China regards Taiwan as a rogue province and part of its sovereign territory. That tension has existed. The US has been the guarantee of Taiwanese safety. With chips becoming more and more important geopolitically, and we've seen that tension rise, obviously there's concern that maybe China takes a strategic look at Taiwan in terms of taking hold of it.
Will silicon ever move back to Silicon Valley in a meaningful way? Will chip manufacturing come back to the US?
I think we will see chip manufacturing back in the US. I think we should recognize, though, that the semiconductor world is global. Like, that ship has sailed.
Was moving manufacturing abroad a mistake?
In hindsight, I think we would have been happier if there was more manufacturing in the US.
American manufacturing, the backbone of our economy, began to get hollowed out. Companies moved jobs overseas. Today, we're down to producing only around 10% of the world's chips, despite leading the world in research and design of new chip technologies.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute financial news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee at the Federal Reserve, and this is Bloomberg.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg. The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day.
Big tech earnings kick off later this afternoon.
Gilead is coming out right now. We have take 2 numbers. Back to the markets, right? Our bread and butter.
NVIDIA is one of the best stories of the tech space.
That actually matters a whole lot more.
It might shock some of your viewers.
You're watching The Close.
Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. Bloomberg Surveillance covers the latest in global markets and the political events that influence your world. Join Jonathan Farrell, Lisa Abramowitz, and Anne-Marie Henry Hordern, only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers Jobs Day like Bloomberg.
The U.S. government is considering capping exports of your chips and NVIDIA's to other countries. Is that the right call?
The technology that we're building is some of the most powerful chips in the world. And so we totally get that there's a national security element of it. We want there to be as open a market as possible while still taking into account the national security interests. And it's a give and take.
Do you worry about the future of Taiwan?
We all worry about ensuring that there is resiliency in the supply chain. So put China and Taiwan aside. A few years ago, we had a big storm in Texas, and things were out for a few days. And that's geographic concentration that you want to make sure that there's resiliency for.
You were born in Taiwan, and I know you go back to your hometown often. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not visiting fabs?
I really do love Taiwan. And I was born in Tainan, so it's a small city in the southern part of Taiwan. Actually, I was just there not too long ago to visit family, and we have a big family. My dad had 9 siblings, and my mom had 6, so it was like a big family. So there's lots and lots of cousins and aunts and uncles and all of that, and so yeah, it's just fun to kind of be a part of that.
Everyone's curious about the habits of super successful leaders. What are your go-tos? What's in your daily routine?
Well, this morning I was up at 6:30 boxing, so that's in the daily routine. Need to have energy when you start a morning.
Heck yeah.
And a day is either here in the office or it's on the road. But when I'm here in Austin, it's a good day.
When the pace is relentless and perfect execution is the only option, sometimes you need to take your foot off the gas and watch another team compete for some inspiration. Formula One is the most technologically advanced motorsport in the world, and AMD's chips give the Mercedes F1 team an edge in the competition. Sue is giving us a front row seat to the action because, well, she likes fast cars too.
We have a lot of Porsches in our family. That's our thing. One of the things is all of my cars have our product names on it. So I have a Ryzen, and I have an Epic, and I have a Radeon, and I have an Epic 2.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I heard there's an AMD color way.
There is a color palette. The Epic color is graphite blue metallic, and it's a gorgeous color.
And that's the color every quarter.
It is.
That's epic. When you look at a car, an F1 car, does it look like a computer on wheels to you?
It absolutely does. That's actually even more than that. I mean, the car itself is just one piece of the equation, right? What's so amazing about the entire Formula One technologies, it's the car, but then it's also just everything behind it that helps get the car ready.
I mean, it's filled with chips and sensors.
I love the fact that, Toto actually keeps us informed about how things are going, and, it's great that our technology helps them make some of those adjustments.
At Formula One, along with star driver Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes racing boss Toto Wolff is an institution. He works hand in hand with companies like AMD and a team of elite engineers to push the limits of speed and performance for their cars.
There's a million different things that go into winning. How do you figure out the one thing that nobody else knows?
There is no such thing as one thing.
I agree with you. It's true.
Chip
Absolutely.
industry or motor racing is just good engineering. Empowerment of people, development of people, and giving them the tools to come up with good ideas and make them reality.
Speaking of the technology, how do you think AI is going to change racing?
Engineers would always say the weakness of the car sits between the steering wheel and the engine because it's irrational. It has good and bad days. This human interaction is difficult to replicate because it's an infinite amount of data we generate. The driver has so many sensors. We have hundreds of millions, if not billions of sensors in our body that make the individual still much superior to the machine in the racing car. So we are in our infant shoes in terms of AI and application in Formula One.
Louis, how are you? It's so great to see you.
Lovely to see you.
What's your vibe today? What do you think? How are you feeling?
Practice one was horrendous. It's like the worst practice. I had a big spin. This is a circuit with all the high speeds, all that complex. You have to get building blocks. So when you have a spin like that, it knocks you down the ladder. You don't have a lot of time to get back there. So in this session, I just have to go for it. Hope that the car is there.
And you're so involved on the engineering side of things. Like, what drives you to do that?
That's the fun part. So that's where you tap into your creativity, right? I'm not a designer in terms of car, but I love trying to understand it and trying to see if I can pull something out of the designers that they haven't already done.
Yeah. By the way, Lewis is a gamer too, so he uses some of our gaming technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only ever play Call of Duty. I've been looking recently, like, what else is there? I know there's a lot that I'm missing.
The thing that there's such a nice parallel with Formula One is we learn in every race. It's the same thing in our world in technology, right? We learn with every customer environment that we put our technology in, with the entire F1 season. Like every race, you learn something and you adjust.
While it's still early days in the next great technology race, Sue has shown she can master a pivot and deliver results, something none of her predecessors could at a company that many had written off. And typical of Sue, she skips the victory lap and is laser focused on the next step forward.
What else do you want to accomplish in the world, aside from making AMD succeed?
I'm passionate about the next generation of leadership. So I was very lucky in my career. People paid attention and gave me opportunities. I believe that's part of my job as well. There should be more women in technology. I think there are more. Like, we've made a lot of progress over the last number of years, but there's a lot more to do.
So what's the lesson in there?
Have confidence in yourself, right? Take a chance. Like, don't worry about failure. Like, sit in those meeting rooms and say what's on your mind and volunteer. I was given this advice when I was a young engineer. It was, run towards problems. And what does that mean? It means, look, we're all going to work really hard every day. You might as well work really hard on something that is really important. And so look for that hardest problem to solve and volunteer to help, because you're going to learn a lot in the process. You're going to distinguish yourself. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, you make a mistake. Okay, fine. Get up. The next day is another day, and you will have learned so much in that process.
So what's it like moving from the East Coast, where everything is finance and money, to the West Coast, where everything is technology? Did you fit in right away? And did you really know how to use all the computer things that they give you to use?
So it was pretty fun. There were plenty of times where I would sit around in meetings and literally I would be Googling terms. And at one meeting, Larry Page actually caught me Googling terms. And he kind of pointed that out to other people in the room, which was a little embarrassing, but I figured there were some things that I could do that they couldn't do. And so it was a learning curve. And my dad always, he taught me at a young age a term that I've used constantly with my teams. He said, in his lab at Stanford, if a physicist could not define a quark in under 30 seconds, they didn't know what they were talking about. And so I use the quark test all the time. If somebody's rambling on and they can't get to the point, they probably don't know what they're talking about. They failed the quark test. My finance team knows this quark test. And at Google, I'm working with amazing computer scientists, so they never fail the quark test. They can explain things really clearly, which shoots you up the learning curve.
But did you understand what they were talking about from the beginning, or did you have a special tutor that's taught you technology? Or did you
I had actually run tech banking and took Google Public, so I had a little sneak preview.
One of the very critical things is that a lot of young entrepreneurs don't realize is that when you start as an entrepreneur, you're not just building your business, which of course you are, but you're also building your organization. And most people don't realize that. And building an organization is not just about hiring people. It's about the culture, it's about the systems, the values, the mission. It's about how you operate, how you do things, how you retain people, how you keep them motivated. So it's all of those things put together. And over time, you realize that, a lot of effort has to go into it. And then eventually you have an organization that has a life of its own. It's sometimes you look at it and you marvel and you think about, how was this created? And was I the person that was behind getting this thing done?
There
in the European earnings season.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics, and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and reporting insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacroix, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg. Davos 2025. Much of it was classic snow, billionaires, and world leaders. But it was not business as usual. Events were shaped by one of the most remarkable political comebacks of all time.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
In Washington, Donald Trump was inaugurated for a second time as U.S. president. He loomed large over the World Economic Forum before speaking by video link, warning of tariffs and calling for lower oil prices.
If you don't make your product in America, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
Trump was the talk of the town.
He's a deal maker, right? And if you're a deal maker, the first thing you do is you show your powerful stance.
There's the policy environment and there's the rhetoric. And I think we can actually get to a positive policy environment.
He makes big, broad statements. I'm going to buy Greenland. And then from there, goes in with a more kind of practical deal approach.
That Trump is starting that debate is good. And he will always do it in his own way, which is with the door in his hand.